Hi there ladies and gentlemen, this is Eastwood for Life fan, and this is my Chuck Norris movie collection. Now Chuck Norris, a huge martial arts star in the 70s, and he hit mainstream success in the 80s as one of Cannon Films' leading stars, and then in the 90s he done the hit U.S. TV series Walker, Texas Ranger. And speaking of the 80s, Chuck Norris did hit the age of 80 years old in March of this year, and always been a fan of Chuck Norris, but I didn't realise how much of a legit tough guy he really was, not just on screen. There's a little bit of a background on Chuck Norris. 4 years he was a U.S. Air Force policeman in Korea, which he served time there for the as a policeman. And in Korea, while he was there, he learned his martial arts. Then he returned to the US in 1962, and he actually was thinking of a career in law enforcement. And while putting his application in, he opened up his martial arts studio. And then Chuck Norris, he became very competitive in martial arts, twice being a all-American martial arts champion, as well as a pro middleweight karate champion. For 6 years he held on to the title. And then in 1969 he was a karate Triple Crown winner, having the most tournament wins of that year. And in the late 60s he became good friends with Bruce Lee. And then Bruce Lee wanted Chuck Norris to appear in the 1972 movie The Way of the Dragon. And what a opening role for him being on screen, Chuck Norris, in The Way of the Dragon, as he played Colt, a hired American hand, and the two of them had their classic fight in the Colosseum in Italy. So yeah, here is The Way of the Dragon, classic Bruce Lee movie, and there you get scenes of Chuck Norris versus Bruce Lee. And then actually one of Chuck Norris's students was Steve McQueen. And Steve McQueen had mentioned to Chuck Norris to take on acting a lot more serious. And Chuck Norris had his first break in the movie Breaker Breaker, made in 1977. It's a cheap, low-budget action movie where Chuck Norris plays a truck driver who is trying to investigate his missing truck driver brother, who has been held and captive by a corrupt judge in a very small town. An okay watch, but not one of Chuck Norris's best movies. But you've got to start somewhere in your career. And then the next movie, Good Guys Wear Black. This is the Australian release. A minor success. It did turn out a profit of $18 million on a $1 million budget, where Chuck Norris plays John T. Booker, a Vietnam vet, and some of his army buddies are getting killed off, and then Chuck Norris, he wants to investigate, as he's now retired and he's a teacher. And you do get the great scene where he jumps into the windscreen of a moving car. Yeah, not a bad movie, this one, Good Guys Wear Black. And actually the character of John T. Booker, he used the name for the Expendables in the second movie, paying homage to that character. The next movie is A Force of One. Not one of my favourites from the 70s. This one, Chuck Norris is helping a police unit as some of their members of the unit are getting killed off by a martial artist, and Chuck Norris is a kickboxer, and he helps to track down the killer. Sometimes gets mistaken for a sequel of Good Guys Wear Black, but it's not. On to the 1980s, and the next movie that Chuck Norris made in 1980, The Octagon, a slightly bigger budget movie. This one with Lee Van Cleef. One of my favourite Chuck Norris early movies, and it's a very good one, this one, where Chuck Norris plays Scott James, a retired martial arts expert, and he's got to stop a group of terrorists trained in a camp, kind of like ninja styled, and his half brother is actually training these terrorists up, and Lee Van Cleef is in this movie, but kind of gets a little bit misused in this movie. Don't see a whole lot of him, but very good action movie, this one. Pretty violent, and this is the US release, put out by Scorpion Releasing. You do get the an alternate cover. The Octagon, only one man can stop them. Yeah, very entertaining Chuck Norris movie, this one. A top 10 movie for sure from his career. And the next one in 1981, An Eye for an Eye, and now Chuck Norris was appearing in movies in the early 80s with a higher budget. This is An Eye for an Eye, and in this movie Chuck Norris stars with Christopher Lee and also Richard Roundtree from the Shaft movies. An undercover narcotics cop. He wants to crack down a drug smuggling ring organised by the Triads. Not a bad Chuck Norris movie, but he wanted to actually do less martial arts in his movies, but still a good one, this one. An Eye for an Eye, and this is the American Kino Lorber release, 1981 movie. He followed that one up with Silent Rage. Science created him, now Chuck Norris must destroy him. Very good Chuck Norris movie, this one. Pretty popular with horror fans because Chuck Norris plays a small town sheriff who goes after a silent, kind of like Michael Myers serial killer, who he thought he had killed, only to be brought back to life by a scientist. Ron Silver plays the scientist, and this is the American Mill Creek release with the slipcover. So it's kind of like Chuck Norris versus Machine. Yeah, very good entertaining action movie with Chuck Norris from 1982. And then later on in that year, he made Forced Vengeance, a movie directed by James Fargo, who directed the third Dirty Harry movie, The Enforcer. No Blu-ray release of this one yet. And Chuck Norris plays a top security guard in a casino in Hong Kong, and the owner gets killed off, and they are after the daughter, who Chuck Norris has to protect. Yeah, very good movie, this one. Forced Vengeance, a little underrated. The next movie, one of my Chuck Norris favourites from 1983. This is Lone Wolf Mcquaid, and this is where Chuck Norris's career really does start to take off. A movie directed by Steve Carver, who directed An Eye for an Eye, and worked with Chuck Norris previously. And this one stars Chuck Norris, David Carradine, and Barbara Carrera, who was in the unofficial Bond movie Never Say Never Again. Excellent movie, this one. Chuck Norris plays a Texas Ranger who goes after a drugs and arms dealer, played by David Carradine, who both cross paths over their love for martial arts and over the same woman as well. Yeah, he kind of plays like a dirty, rough sheriff, the complete opposite to his TV series character, Walker, Texas Ranger. And this is the German media book. I wanted to pick a special edition up of this great Chuck Norris movie. It's kind of like a modern day spaghetti western. You do get the spaghetti western feel to it, and the opening track is a kind of playing homage to the spaghetti western movies, but one of Chuck Norris's best movies, if not his best, Lone Wolf Mcquaid. And Cannon saw this movie and they saw a lot of potential in Chuck Norris for sure. And then his next movie was for Cannon Films, the 1984 action movie Missing in Action, where he plays Colonel Braddock, and he takes on a mission to investigate a prisoner of war camp that he escaped from years earlier, to find out if it's true that there's a rumor that American soldiers are still being held captive. And yeah, one of Chuck Norris's most iconic B action movies, directed by Joseph Zito. And then this one's Missing in Action 2, which is actually the prequel. There are rumours that this movie was filmed before the first one, but this one's highly underrated movie. The story is mainly about Chuck Norris. He's being held captive in Vietnam. A pretty good movie, this one. Missing in Action 2, the beginning. And then 1985, he actually done a movie that wasn't with Cannon Films, and this is Code of Silence, where he plays a Chicago cop, Eddie Cusack, who is gets caught in a kind of like a gang war, and then he tries to bring the two families down. And the opening scene of the movie, a drugs bust which goes badly wrong. And this one is actually Chuck Norris's second highest grossing earning movie. This one, Code of Silence. Originally, the story was actually made for a Dirty Harry movie titled Dirty Harry Code of Silence. Dirty Harry 4, Code of Silence for the late 70s, which Clint Eastwood didn't do. But a top 10 Chuck Norris movie for sure, Code of Silence. And you do get Henry Silva and Dennis Farina in this action-packed cop thriller. The next movie is the first movie of his 6-movie deal with Cannon Films, and it's a very good one, this one, Invasion USA. Chuck Norris, he goes after a retired ex-Soviet agent named Rostov, played by Richard Lynch, and he leads a load of Russian and Cuban guerrillas to invade America. And Chuck Norris, Matt Hunter, a retired CIA agent, has to stop him. Great action movie, this one, directed by Joseph Zito, the director that directed Missing in Action. And Very good action movie, this one, Invasion USA, and that's it. That is a great poster. And after the success of that movie, he went on to Cannon's big budget movie for them, 1986 movie, The Delta Force. Originally Charles Bronson was going to be paired up with Chuck Norris, but he chose to do Death Wish 4, and actually this was Lee Marvin's last movie. Great cast in this one. You get the likes of obviously Lee Marvin, Martin Balsam, Robert Forster, who plays one of the terrorists, George Kennedy, Robert Vaughn, and also Shelley Winters. And Chuck Norris was paid $2 million for his appearance in this movie, where he tackles terrorists who hijack a plane in Athens. Yeah, very high budget movie for Cannon Films. Great action scenes. Great pairing actually with Chuck Norris and Lee Marvin. A great movie for Chuck Norris to be paired off with a great actor like Lee Marvin. The next movie, Chuck Norris wanted to do something a little bit different. This is Firewalker, directed by British director J. Lee Thompson, and kind of like a Indiana Jones rip-off, this one. And Lou Gossett Jr. is in this movie, where the two of them play treasure hunting chancers. More of a light-hearted role for Chuck Norris. Kind of takes the mickey out of his tough guy persona, but for me the jokes they kind of fell a little bit flat. Not really a Chuck Norris movie that is a favourite of mine, Firewalker. Then Chuck went back into action movies. 1988, the third movie in the Mission in Action series. This is Braddock, Mission in Action 3, and this time the movie has a slightly smaller budget, and Braddock realizes that he has a wife and a son in Vietnam, and he has to go back to try to rescue them. Not a bad action movie, this one, but not as good as the first two in my opinion. The next movie in the career of Chuck Norris is Hero and the Terror. Kind of a underrated Chuck Norris movie, this one. He goes on the trail of a serial killer in Los Angeles, and now Chuck Norris in his career is kind of doing a lot less martial arts as he's getting a little bit more older. But Cannon Films now at this time the movies were a lot lower budget, but still I enjoyed this one, and it's a pretty underrated movie in my opinion. Hero and the Terror, and a favourite with a lot of the horror movie fans, this one, as you do get the serial killer storyline. But very good movie, this one, Hero and the Terror. Then the next one is Delta Force 2, sometimes known as Delta Force 2, The Columbia Connection. Movie directed by his brother Aaron Norris, and you could quite easily see that Cannon Films were lacking the star power for this movie, as it's just mainly Chuck Norris is in this movie, and his character and the Delta team, they go to a made-up South American country, San Carlos, where they try to stop the flow of cocaine getting to the markets in the US. But yeah, it's an okay action movie, but it's nowhere near as good as the original movie. They did make the third movie, Delta Force 3, but Chuck Norris wasn't in that. It did have his son actually in the movie, but yeah, this is the Delta Force 2. Not one of my favourites of his. And 1991 he made the Hitman, and this one's a very underrated movie. This one, a cop gets shot in a drugs bust by his long time partner who's corrupt. And then Chuck Norris's character, he comes back with a new identity, and he now works for a hitman undercover for a mob boss. But yeah, very good one, this one. Highly underrated, this one. A top 10 Chuck Norris movie for me. I do like the look of him with a long trench coat and a shotgun, and he does wear a mullet hairstyle. But the Hitman is a movie to track down for sure. Next movie in his career is Sidekicks, a light-hearted action comedy. Chuck Norris is in this movie. Also Beau Bridges and Mako is in this one. This is the Australian DVD. It does need a Blu-ray release. A young schoolboy who's asthmatic. He has dreams of being Chuck Norris's kind of like movie sidekick, where they're battling against some of Chuck's enemies, and the schoolboy gets bullied at school and decides to take up martial arts and goes up against the bullies from school. You do get a couple of fun scenes where the two of them actually redo the missing in action scene where Chuck comes out of the water. That was quite hysterical. And also a scene with the character that he played in the Hitman. But underrated movie, this one, Sidekicks. A good action comedy movie, family orientated movie to watch. Yeah, and I enjoyed this one. And the next movie is actually Cannon's last film in 1994. This is Hillbound, kind of like a supernatural cop thriller. Yeah, I didn't enjoy this one at all. Didn't enjoy the sidekick who came in to side with Chuck Norris, played by Calvin Levels. Yeah, very poor actor. Yeah, two Chicago cops who have a case in Israel where they go against the forces of evil. Silly idea, but it's could have been a whole lot better when you consider what they did with the Arnie Schwarzenegger movie End of Days. But yeah, Cannon Films really were having problems, and this was definitely their last movie they made. Very cheaply made movie, Hillbound. Not one of Chuck Norris's best movies for sure. The following year he made a kind of like a buddy cop movie, kind of similar to Turner and Hooch and K9. This is Top Dog. Chuck Norris and the police dog, Reno. Actually, it's not a bad movie, this one, but the only problem with this movie, the storyline is a little bit more adult, as Chuck Norris goes after some neo-Nazis, so it's not as family orientated as it could have been. Top Dog, and this was Chuck Norris's last movie released on cinema that he's the main star. Top Dog. And then in 1993, Chuck Norris, he appeared in the TV series Walker, Texas Ranger, which originally it was to start off with a 3 pilot episodes, and then it ran for 8 seasons, and then finished off with a TV movie. This is season 1, These are American DVD releases. Then season 2, Chuck Norris plays Cordell Walker and his partner Jimmy Trevette, and you also get Alex Cahill, played by Cherie J. Wilson, who's the district attorney, and it's kind of like a modern day Western series. Currently watching this series on season 2. Then season 3 of Walker, Texas Ranger. Actually, the series was inspired by the Lone Wolf Mcquaid character, but Cordell Walker is a lot more clean cut compared to J.J. Mcquaid. The 3rd season. And in between the 3rd and 4th season, he done a movie straight to video, Forrest Warrior, a pretty awful Chuck Norris movie. This one, it's kind of a kids movie where Chuck Norris he plays a protective spirit who's trying to protect the wilderness. Yeah, very silly action movie, this one, comedy action, Forrest Warrior. Then he went back to doing his TV series. This is Walker, Texas Ranger season 4. Very popular TV series, this one. Season 5 of Walker, Texas Ranger, and there is Cherie Wilson. She played a character in the hit TV series Dallas. Season 6, you can pick up the series in a big kind of like fat pack box set of all 8 seasons, and they're all full frame, they're not widescreen. This one's season 7. And then the last season you get Walker, Texas Ranger is season 8. There are some of the actors. Finished in 2001, the series. And then Chuck Norris made some TV movies. This one is actually the first one he made is Logan's War, Bound by Honor. That was in 1998. He made that in between Walker, Texas Ranger, and then The President's Man, and then The President's Man, A Line in the Sand. And these are cheaply made TV movies, nothing like the Chuck Norris movies of the late 70s and 80s. Probably wouldn't watch these ones again, but just wanted to watch these movies once. Then back in 2005, he made a TV movie with Walker, Texas Ranger, and this is Trial by Fire. And on information that I know, this is not included in the box set, the U.S. complete box set of Walker, Texas Ranger. This is a German release which has English audio. And later that year he done another pretty poor TV movie. This is The Cutter, where Chuck Norris is tracking down a thief who has captured a Jewish diamond cutter. And yeah, not a very good Chuck Norris movie, this one. Very clear and evident that he's had plastic surgery. This is a movie in 2005. And then 2012, Chuck Norris appeared in the second movie of The Expendables. And he definitely belongs with this super cast of action movie stars from the 80s and the 90s. Actually, Chuck Norris, he plays a military, a retired military operative. There he is there. And character name is John T. Booker, which was the name and character that he used in the movie Good Guys Wear Black. So that is all my Chuck Norris movies. Yeah, guys, let us know if you're a fan of Chuck Norris movies. List down your favourite movies of his. Definitely one of the greatest martial artists ever. Champion in martial arts. Air Force policeman for 4 years with the U.S. and iconic 80s B-movie action star for Canon Films. So guys, yeah, that is all of my Chuck Norris movie collection. Be good to hear what you think of Chuck Norris as a action star. So guys, till the next video, stay healthy and well, and as always, keep on collecting.